Everyone, welcome to week 3 of Todds Maz. This week I have Dozer Dave as our guest. Dave, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi.
Yeah, so I think
Excited.
it's about time, everybody knows me as the coach that had the first 0-0 win in league history. About time we have the coach with the first 0-0 loss. So
Right.
without further ado, we'll be getting into it. And I know that Dave has some really hype things to say about his match, so stay tuned until that. Alright, the first match that we have for this week is the GlitchXCity Charum and the Valencia Volcarona, two of the best teams in the league, and the actual rematch of the first championship game from Season 1. So, John and Tyler are both very good coaches, so I don't really feel the need to, talk up too much of their strengths. I think that both of them made some really good predictions during the game. I think that both of them had some pretty solid team building going into it. And the fact that the match was so close, I think, attests to how well they both played. So I think Tyler had some good predictions. John had some good reads as well. But I think I'll let Dave, who I think is the only coach in the league better than them and able to actually roast them. So do you want to kind of get into some of the stuff that we did wrong?
Oh. Well, yeah, I agree. I don't mind if I do. I think John mentioned to me that he wished he hadn't thrown away Clefable so early in the game. He said that was his only mistake because he was kind of set up. He was kind of set up to do a lot of damage to Tyler's team. I think his problem with Clefable was just he blew his load a little early in the match, where Tyler had just enough resources to take it down without losing his entire team, which it kind of seemed like that could have happened. The way that Clefable was staring down, and I don't usually talk about Clefable in that way because I don't like Clefable. But it was a little bit threatening there in the middle of the match.
I have to say, the Iron Tail that took it down was pretty predictable as well.
Yeah.
So I think that was really telegraphed, and I think that it was doing so much work earlier on. Because like you, I'm also on team anti-Clefable, but I think it was really putting in work. It had some boosts up and everything, and just.
There was one more kind of sketchy play with Nihilego, and this one's kind of iffy, kind of can go either way with this one. But he's in against Slowbro, and he sets Toxic Spikes, and his Nihilego just goes boom, and it's gone. And Toxic Spikes ended up being totally worth it. In the end game, he needed those Toxic Spikes up, but Lando was still up in the back. So I don't know if it was entirely worth it to just throw away Nihilego to get up the Toxic Spikes
at that early point in the game.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see that. I think that the biggest thing I have with Tyler's play, though, isn't really the Nihilego. The biggest thing I have during the game with Tyler's gameplay was the. I think he could have just brought one more offensive Mon. I think his team wasn't really well coordinated to break through so many of John's walls, and he relied on some of John's misplays, like the staying in with Clefable. I think that if you look at the match, there's a lot of times he's doing 50% or 45% to John's walls, and John's walls are just recovering half their health that turn, and he didn't really have the status or anything else to chip away, so he just was having problems breaking holes. So I think that having a more offensive set, maybe not on Lando or something like that, but having one Pokemon with a more offensive bend would have helped him out.
I actually wrote, I think Lando could have been a little bit offensive, maybe just with Defog, because all it really did was Defog and then U-turn, and then exactly. I think another time it U-turned and then it killed Clefable.
Yeah.
But I think he could have used it a little more offensively.
Yeah, for sure. I think that John had the sort of the neutral game going as well, but then he also had the punish game in terms of having Lop in the back, and he had stuff in the back that kind of won the game, whereas I didn't really see exactly. Tyler was just kind of whittling down his opponent. He didn't really have something to go in towards and win the end game.
The Buzzwole, I thought Tyler had won that game. I was watching it. Tyler was in with Buzzwole, and I thought Buzzwole won the game at that point.
True.
It was a really close ending.
Yeah, it was pretty tight, but I think that just a little bit more Buzzwole. Yeah. I get what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I think my point's.
And then of course we got to mention the skillful freeze there in the middle of the match that didn't last very long.
I feel bad. I think that Tyler misplayed there by actually staying in. I think he was counting on the freeze to actually work for at least one turn, and that's not something you can do. I think
the only thing worse than the freeze is the first turn thaw.
Yeah. But all right, I don't think there's really too much we could give these coaches in terms of feedback to get them, improving for next week. So how about we move on to the next match, which also has teams that are probably not going to be able to help too much because it's Mark versus Jeff.
Alright, next we have Mark versus Jeff, which is another match that's played on an entirely different level from what we're used to be seeing.
It's these interdivisional matches, like in week 3, are really hyped because we get to see some of like playoff caliber performances, but early in the season when people are still not quite used to their teams. Because I could definitely see this or John versus Tyler happening again in the playoffs. Couldn't say that for most of the matches we've seen so far in the season, but all right.
Yeah, this is a fun one.
So I think that starting off just at the very beginning of the game, we can talk about one of Jeff's biggest misplays, and I think that's the stack attack play. It was just very
turn one.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand maybe going for a trick room, turn 1 against anything that doesn't have priority staying in. You can get the advantage that way. You might, even if he has like Greninja in the back, it can come in and just water shuriken you can still maybe either get a Pokemon down or get rocks up or something like that. But when Greninja's right in front of you have to switch out there, or you have to go for some sort of like surprise, like attack turn 1 or something like that to get chip. You can't just bet on it not. You can't just bet on Greninja not having water shuriken. Who does that?
Yeah, or Shadow Sneak. It could have Shadow Sneak.
Yeah. But who bets on Greninja not having priority? Come on, Jeff.
Yeah, or it turns out and then it breaks your sash. That's not a good situation either.
Yeah. As well, that's also a big deal. And I think that in addition to that, setting up the trick room hurt Jeff for the next couple of turns because Mark had a slower team overall than Jeff did. So once Taka went down,
Mark was using the trick room.
Yeah, and just imagining like at the team building level, I don't really see that working too well either because Mark also has some slower Pokemon that he didn't bring. Like he still has Marowak, right? Like that jumps to mind. So there's stuff that he didn't bring too that like made this strategy very risky.
But I think bonus now.
yeah, exactly.
That's like exclusively a trick room Pokemon.
I know. So I don't fault Jeff for bringing the set. I don't fault him for going for it, but I think that it was way too early, and he blew his load with that, and kind of started on the back foot. And he did have a good mid game. I don't think that Jeff really was in control of the game at any point. I think that Mark was the one in control, and he had a better win con assessment. But I think that Jeff played the mid game very solidly and kept things close.
I think I was watching the replay, and right at the end, with like the last 3 or 4 turns, Jeffson was Manaphy against Mega Abomasnow, and I think maybe he could have gone into Infernape and then fired up close combat. He kills either Greninja or Abomasnow, and then I think Manaphy might have been able to, because if he switches, he kills Greninja and then he kills Abomasnow next. Or if Abomasnow stays in, then Manaphy might be able to 1v1 the Greninja. That would have been a better situation than Infernape on Greninja because of Water Shirt.
I don't have the match in front of me right now. I think Manaphy did have some chip though, so that could have been hard to 1v1 the Greninja at that point in the game, especially with losing its speed boost for the switch.
Yeah, I don't have the calc, but I feel like it would have been a better chance of Manaphy beating Greninja than Infernape beating Greninja.
I get what you're saying. One thing I want to give Jeff credit for, what's his grass type again? Was it...
Serena.
His Serena set was really good, and I think it was a pretty good usage of it. It was just the same, it got toxic pretty early.
Yeah. Imagine having one tier 4 Pokemon in your team that makes the other guy not bring offensive Zygarde.
Yeah, and I think that was actually a really good bring on Mark's part. Toxic.
It was amazing. It was great.
I think that's something that you can't really overvalue is having a big offensive Pokemon that people are afraid of in draft. They know it's coming, and then just have it set up Toxic on whatever is the obvious switch. I think that's one of the most underrated things.
At that point, Jeff's Serena was completely useless because it checked offensive Zygarde, and offensive Zygarde didn't come.
Yeah, and I think that it was a good bring. If I were Mark necessarily, I wouldn't really be thinking that Serena would be the check. I would guess I would get that, but at the same time, I didn't think it was the most obvious check on his team. But it was set up very well to be one. It's just that I think Mark was the one step ahead for this entire game.
Yeah.
Both in terms of planning and win con assessment.
Mark's very good at prep.
Yeah.
And he's getting all that practice with the other leagues too.
Yeah. I think that like we'll get to it at the end of the section when we talk about our top coaches. But I think that Mark is definitely one of the ones who's up there this season.
I think he's the best right now.
We'll get into that later. So
yes.
We'll get into the next match first. Okay, and the next match that we'll be having to talk about today is Pace versus Finn. So that's the Neon Genesect Evangelion versus Minior Problem. So I said to Dave when we stopped the last recording that I wanted to roast somebody soon. So I guess this is the time where we can roast Finn. Finn,
right?
Nothing on your team check a +2 rock. And I know that you got tilted after you missed the Will-O-Wisp, but I think you needed a better strategy than hitting a Will-O-Wisp to stop that sweep. If anything, Pace got greedy setting it up against the Pokemon with Willow, and that was a mistake on his part. I think that was just a team building or something like that fiasco. The only thing I think on Finn's team that might have been able to check it was Steela. So that's just kind of a yikes.
Yeah, it's always tough when you have all 6 Pokemon alive, and then you lose like 4 before you can kill something.
Yeah, I think that outside of like that one hole in the building, though, I think that Finn's team was pretty solid.
Yeah, I would have liked to see more of it, and more of Pace's team, because we didn't see much of that either.
Yeah. Looking at Finn's team real quick, I'm bringing it up the battle again because I just want to see one more thing. I don't usually do this. Yeah. So Tangrowth. I think that the other thing Finn kind of choked with was the Tangrowth play. I don't think he thought that the Z move from Lycanroc would do so much damage, because I think that he still needed Tangrowth to check later on in the game versus a couple different mons, specifically Zeraora and Caracosta. So I think that sacking the Tangrowth early, I think that he just was caught completely by surprise and didn't calc that Z move, because that's what Pace was counting on him to do, was not to calc the Z move. Not to calc the Adamant.
I would have been really surprised too.
Adamant, yeah, because even Jolly was barely a chance to kill, but Adamant almost guaranteed the kill from full. So, I think that was a good play on Pace's part, setting up and everything, but I think that Finn falling for the bait really, really hurt him in the long run.
Yeah, Finn, I mean, it's tough with this team. I don't know what necessarily could have taken down the Lycanroc, but that's when you got to start bringing sashes and I don't know, like the Rock Berry or whatever.
Especially against Pace. I mean,
you gotta bring something fancy.
At this point, is Pace like the setup guru now that I'm not in the league? I think he kind of is. Who else sets up more than Pace?
Shake my head.
I guess Angela.
Yeah.
But I think Angela was good at setting up as Pace is.
Angela just comes in and sets up like a curse.
Yeah, but I think that Pace is kind of the guy who's gotten the most success out of setup. So I think that you kind of have to be, aware of that.
Yeah, the end game here with the Turtonator, or not Turtonator, what it's called Turtonators, Caracosta, sorry.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Why? That was like the most obvious weakest policy I've ever seen.
To be fair, at that point, Finn just didn't have any options. He had to click that because he had nothing else that he could do. Otherwise, it just
probably didn't even matter. Yeah, but still, you hate to see it. It's the same thing. It's the same. He's doing the exact same thing. He gets to a plus whatever, and then he clicks his priority move, and he does a lot of damage.
Yeah. So I think that Finn, got caught off guard by a couple things. Got placed on like a lot of tilt by the Willow miss. I think there are some things he could have done to mitigate that and save some differential, but I think that he was a bit too tilted there. I think in addition to tilt, like also caught off guard. And I think that sacking the Tangrowth was just like the wrong thing to do at that point in the game. It's tough.
That's a tough calc. I think that would have gotten me. I think
at the team builder, like Finn had some solid ideas and everything, but it's sort of like what happened to what he did to Jeff last week, in terms of like Jeff had no answers to his Celesteela last week. This week, Finn had no answers to Pace's Lycanroc, but other than like a Willow or something like that. But otherwise, other than that one flaw, like everything was pretty good, and you just see what happens with one flaw with your team building against a team that wants to run setup.
I wanted to rip on Pace just a little bit for throwing away Zeraora to to the Mega Aerodactyl, but I guess in hindsight it was all calculated because he just got in Caracosta.
Caracosta at the end, he just Stealth Smashes once, and I think he doesn't even need the weakness policy to just go with the Aqua Jet.
Yeah.
So I think that was pretty much okay. This is done. Let's just move on to the
next
one.
It was. It's a good game.
One thing I want to say is Pace's Wazing play at the beginning of the game, I do also like that as well. The double Sludge Bomb into throwing off the Willow, expecting a Volt Switch from the Rotom, that once its special attack got lowered. I think that was a pretty solid play. So, I like to see that at the beginning.
Yeah.
Again, sort of with Finn, though, like, also double overheating might not be the best play against such a setup-oriented team, because even if Pace didn't bring out...
that's a good point.
If Pace didn't
just get out...
Whatchamacallit, like in Rock there, if he brought out a more specially oriented Pokemon and started setting up with that could have been a pretty big problem, because he wouldn't have been able to burn it. He would have had to Volt Switch out, and...
Yeah, well, say turn 8, Finn just Volt Switches... The Lycanroc would probably have been in range of Giga Drain from Comfy.
True.
Instead of just missing the Will-O-Wisp.
Yeah. That's true.
So because Giga Drain put it down to 2%, so it would have definitely been in range.
All right, but I think that's pretty much all I have to say with this one.
Yeah.
Kind of a big yikes overall. All right, so the next battle we have is Dozer Dave's Pittsburgh Kikumiku versus Don't Hags Me Please from Coach Zack. Since Dave's on the show, as the guest, I'll leave to him to take the helm for this battle.
Alright.
But yeah, Dave, it's your show, go ahead.
Yeah, well, listen, Don, there's... You're kind of with me on the bringing meme sets, and on the very rare occasion when it actually works, you gotta be really, really happy with yourself. And this was one of those matches. Me and John were talking in prep. I don't remember what I had instead of Diglett, but I'm like, hey John, I'm gonna bring Diglett, and he's like, what? No, I promise it works. I had nothing for Empoleon, and Diglett was going to trap in Empoleon and kill it. I didn't end up needing it for that because I got Sash and HP Fire, because then later I figured out, hey, HP Fire kills Kartana, and so I just put a Sash on it, and then it ended up going ham. And who would have thought that little Diglett would have taken out the two most offensive threats in the entire game?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. What else did I have? My mistake, I think, probably maybe my biggest mistake, maybe my only mistake in this game was in prep. I wasn't scared of Volcarona, and maybe I should have been. Maybe it was just being completely lazy. But I had in my head that I would have used the rest of the cheese that I had on the team, like Magnet Rise, Cobalion, Mew, Whimsicott. I had enough cheese on the team to get me through Zach's team to where I would be able to save Kyurem for Volcarona, and it ended up working that way.
I would say your team was pretty weak, and if Volcarona already had some boosts, how much damage would it have done to Kyurem if it was already at +1, +2 by the time Kyurem came in? Kind of risky on your part in terms of team building.
Yeah, it turned out being really risky because Gengar didn't I speed crept something with my Scarf Gengar, so it wouldn't have outsped Volcarona. And as John was saying, if he crit me with the Z move, or if I missed the Rock move, which I had other moves that probably would have killed it, I could have those. But if something funky happened there at the end, it could have gone downhill really quick. So that was a little risky. So yeah, I could have patched that up just a little bit, but I was happy with my team. I was kind of confident going in. What else? The way Zack mentioned this, I think in the Discord after, the way I was kind of playing all throughout the match, I wasn't making any big dick reads. I was just kind of following the flow of the game. I was being relatively safe. I was just going along with the calcs that I knew, what I knew he'd kind of throw in, blah blah blah. And Zack was kind of making the reads a little bit, and I was okay with it. What did I do? I clicked HP Fire with Whimsicott, and he went on to Empoleon. That wasn't a huge deal. What else? Volt Switch on Cabal. Yeah, I clicked Volt Switch on the Kartana when I could have killed it with close combat.
Yeah, there were a lot of times where it's sort of like you were throwing off moves that were doing very low damage because either he switched or, you were going for like a more safe standard option.
Yeah, I was
actually making reads.
I was playing safe the whole time, and then at the end I make like a kind of a funny double, because I'm in with Cabaleon against I think it was Zygarde, something like that. And then I go back out and win. I do some funny double at the end of the game, and I think that kind of secured me the win. Because it could have, if Zack called it or he knew what I was doing. Oh no, I was Whimsicott in on the Zygarde, and I doubled back out into Valion. And then I got another close combat off, and it ended up giving me the Empoleon, which was I think that secured it for me.
Yeah.
And if Zack had called it, that would have been trouble, obviously. But I was playing safe the rest of the game, so it was harder for him to expect me to do something like that at the end.
So looking at Zack's play, I have some things I want to say about that. I just rewatched the matches you were talking. I think that Zack had his end game pretty well in mind, in sort of terms of like looking at your team, analyzing, thinking, okay, Volcarona is the Pokemon that kind of wins the game here. And I think that he got close to doing so. If you were had like a little bit more chip on that Kyurem, or if you were running a different Kyurem set, maybe he ended up taking that out and taking out the rest of your team. So I think that was something that he kind of assessed well. It's just that it didn't quite work out the way he intended. Outside of that, though, there are a lot of things I disagree with in terms of, especially the way he played around Diglett. Maybe it's because I'm the best Little Cup player at the school, but that Sucker Punch I saw coming from a mile away. Hey, I've never lost to any of you guys. That Sucker Punch I saw coming from a mile away, and I knew that as soon as he set up the Alakazam, it meant trouble. He should have just gone into Empoleon and clicked Defog when you had Diglett out. How much percent did Empoleon have at that point? Let me see. It was at full.
83.
Or,
relatively.
Diglett 83.9. Did it? There's no
Diglett didn't kill it there.
Yeah, so it just defogs, you sack it, and then he ends up bringing in Volcarona or something along those lines. If he still has Zam left, I think that's a bit of a different ball game. I think in that game, in that potential timeline, I could see him taking home the W.
Yeah, it was kind of a miracle that he went Alakazam after I killed the Kartana.
So, I don't know if that's just lack of game knowledge or lack of knowledge about random mean Pokemon that shouldn't have been drafted in the first place. But,
excuse me.
Diglett's horrible.
Basil from Baker Street is going places, Don.
We'll see about that. Hopefully it'll be going to the playoffs, because it's about time you get there, dude. It's about time.
Alright, next we have Jacob, the Pain Train. Against Glumak. What do you got to say, Don?
Well, in terms of this one, I think that ultimately Jacob had pretty good pseudo control of the game in terms of the amount of times he was volt switching around. Was impressive, and I think that it was giving him good switches and allowing him to sort of set himself up. But I think that even though in theory Jacob was in control of the game, Glumak was in control of the game because of how their teams worked. So I think that Jacob's team wanted to kind of dance around and find openings and sort of do something when he found an opening. But I think that Glumak's team was just designed to sit in there and hit hard. And especially with the amount of times that Staraptor hit Brave Bird and just decimated an opposing Pokemon, I don't think that all of the volt switching that Jacob was doing was helping. Maybe if he had some rocks or some hazards up or something like that, but he didn't. So in the long run, he was just eating a lot of damage. It seemed to me.
Yeah. Glumak, I think he definitely had the team matchup.
Yeah.
Me and Jacob played some prep matches, and I only brought 3 of the same. I think I had Baronet, Roserade, and Diggersby. I had those 3 Pokemon, and then Glumak had different 3 Pokemon from my other guys. And I ended up sweeping Jacob 2 or 3 times with different Pokemon. So I think Glumak's team in general is just kind of it matches up well against Jacob's team. I think something he could have done was I think this match kind of comes down to prep. I think Jacob could have prepped better.
Yeah.
And for the Decidueye specifically, I think it could have some of the sets I think should have been more generally prepped against different team threats. I think Decidueye should have been physically defensive instead of scarfed, because he had to U-turn out against certain things. Like it wasn't like Staraptor just clicking Brave Bird against anything. Jacob had to get back out when he was in with Decidueye. Whereas if he was like FizzDef with Synthesis or some, he could have done a little better, I think, against Glimax team, because there's not a whole lot aside from maybe like Ice Punch on Feraligatr, or like different coverage moves, and then Staraptor, of course, with Brave Bird, and then maybe like Destiny Bond from Bayonet or something funny like that. But I think some like physical defensive Decidueye would have done a lot better against Glimax team, because Jacob's team, he only had like kind of the one wall in Gastrodon this time around, and he took a Toxic on that immediately. So it was kind of tough from the start.
Yeah. It's one thing I wanted to kind of, highlight a little bit. I think in the last season, at least, it sort of felt that Jacob was sort of recycling some sets. I think basically Jacob seems to start off really well at the beginning of the season, comes up with some good ideas, gets some wins, and it seems like he sort of uses some of the same sets, becomes a little bit predictable in this building. Shoutouts to Scarfy Trend, by the way. So I think it's like, I'm hoping that he's not sort of like, I think he needs to start thinking outside the box, incorporating some stuff a little bit next week.
Who better to have as your roommate than me to show you how to think outside the box.
So I hope you guys can come up with some new ideas, kind of, take a little bit more care in the building, because I think this was more of a building mismatch than an actual playing mismatch, because I think that Jacob did play it pretty well. It just wasn't suited to be the team to beat Glumac. I think that thankfully Jacob made like a really hype transaction over the week that I think will really help the team going forward. Everybody thought, and everybody agreed with me when I said that Closer was a steal in round 2 of the draft the other season.
Absolutely broken. A steal in round 2.
Jacob is getting it in free agency. I think everybody just seriously messed up, and I can't wait to see Jacob just rip through teams with it. So
yeah.
Glumac, good as ever. Not really too much I can say. Good pivoting with Staraptor.
Glumac had some good sets, I think. AV Heracross really put in some work. Physically defensive Rose Raid. Watching his stream, and at some point he was like, "Oh, FizzDef Rose Raid! I didn't even know I had that."
I'm so happy he's streaming. I didn't actually get a chance to watch the week 3 stream.
Yeah.
So I didn't see any of his thoughts on that. I didn't actually go look for the video for this week. But like in the future, I'm gonna try to like watch his videos, get in his mindset, so I can talk about them a little bit as I'm doing these analyses.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
But, like, it's so great that he's doing them. And please, seriously, if anyone tries to see it stream snipe him, you're scum, and we will kick you out. If we have.
It's a little weird because like there's a little bit of lag when you're watching it, but yes, don't.
Even so, like if somebody's taking like a minute to make turns against him, and they're just watching him do stuff. If that happens, like I'm voting to kick them out of the league immediately. Like if we have evidence. Like, that's just, I'm so happy he's doing it, but...
What do you mean, Don? You're not in the league.
What are you talking about? I'm still on the council. Somehow.
Alright.
I don't know why. But Glumac, I can't wait to see what you do next week. Always a big fan of your gameplay, and I'm actually happy that he's going to be on the show probably next week, so spoiler alert for that.
It's exciting.
Yeah. So, the 6th match we have for this week is Code Colin, with the Phantom Thieves versus the Snore Laxatives, still my favorite team name, with Coach Dick. The Snore Laxatives have been looking invincible through the first 2 weeks of the season, although we've been kind of like critiquing their play a little bit and stuff, and like the analysis and stuff like that, pointing out like, okay, a lot of what their wins are coming are from solid team building and, some mistakes that their opponents are making. They still looked really good, and they've still taken home W's against 2 really good teams. So, going into this week, I think everybody was expecting them to win against Colin, who didn't really have that great of a showing the first week. But that's not what happened. That's not what happened at all.
It looked like he was going to win. He looked pretty good at the beginning.
Yeah. So I'd say at the beginning of the game, everything was looking well for Dick, and everything was looking pretty poorly for Colin. Colin making some really bad mistakes, like double sludge waving into a fortress. He didn't really have an answer for hazards in the early game, which kind of hurt like how he could potentially run in the end game, because like Salamence would come in and take a lot of hazard damage. And Dick was doing really well in terms of setting up hazard stack and stuff like that. and then just sort of in general, like the play at the beginning of the game was solid. I just don't think that he had really much of an answer for some of Colin's potential sweepers. He didn't really have a way to get down Vale. He didn't really have a way to sort of hit Scizor with like anything on his team. That didn't die to like +2 bullet punch. And yeah, I think that was just sort of the gist of the battle. I think Colin's team, I'm so happy. Like, I rated Colin's team pretty highly in our draft recap video, and I've been maintaining this for a while now. Colin's team is not designed to live long. It's not designed to. It's not designed. If you're looking at things in a vacuum, say every team plays perfectly the entire season, and like all the coaches are like really top level play, and things just work out perfectly. Colin's team should go 0-10. It shouldn't get a win. It has no real hazard control options. It doesn't really do well setting up hazards itself. But the team is designed to set up reliably and hit hard and punish every little mistake really, really hard. And that's what it does. And when you have a team like this, when Dick comes out and makes more mistakes in this game than he made in the first 2 games combined, Colin's going to take advantage of that, and Colin's going to take that to the bank if he plays right. And I don't think it's a very hard team to use, so I think this is a pretty good, ideal team for Colin. Got some of his favorite Pokemon, got some of like Pokemon that just really hit hard. And this is what I expect to happen maybe 2 or 3 times this season. I don't expect Colin to make playoffs or anything like that. I expect him to get blown out at least once or twice more this season. It's going to happen. But I think that Colin can definitely scoop 2 or 3 more of these surprising wins if he shows up. And I don't think they're really that surprising. I think that Colin, can use his team really well.
Yeah, freaking Colin, man, the god. So Dick's like undefeated at this point. He beats me and Mark.
Yeah.
He looks like he's gonna do the same to Colin, and then Colin he manages to get a Veil. Arcanine, like Dick's only fire type Pokemon with fire type coverage goes down.
Yeah.
Colin's with Veil, he goes Azumarill at 0. Azumarill just kind of dies. Then Scizor falls into his lap, he sets up Swords Dance, and then just wins because Dick left his fire type coverage in the garage somehow.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, like, spoiler alert, we know Dick bounces back next week. And I don't really think he made... I think in the last few weeks, like, we've been able to talk about some things like Dick hasn't been like aggressive enough or stuff like that. But I think really it's one of those matches where he just made one mistake and wasn't really having very much fire coverage on Pokemon that were able to take a +2 bullet punch. So again, I don't really.
Well, yeah, the +4 either.
+4, yeah. So I don't think there's really too much we can talk about in this match. I think it's just how the teams worked out. Like, Colin was bound to get one of these eventually. Did it against one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Hydro from Free Marina would have destroyed him without Aurora Veil, which is kind of funny because that's when he gets hit with the Hydro Pump was when he's got Veil up.
Yep. I mean, to be fair, how much did +4 bullet punch do to Free Marina?
Oh boy, let me check.
You can count that if you want.
Yeah, I got it. Wow, a lot.
How much?
+4 bullet punch. 151 to 178.
Yeah, so it's like the only opportunity he really had to click that was when he wasn't set up, so...
Yeah.
It wasn't like he could save that for later as a win con or something to take down to stop the sweep. He needed to do that earlier, and,
Yeah, it worked out.
Yeah.
It worked out for Colin.
Yeah, so... Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really have too much more to say. I just have to say that Dick's hidden powers have been somewhat questionable this season, like... running HP Dark,
that's true.
Right? HP Dark against Marowak. So I think this is another instance of that, but other than that, I really don't have too much to say. It was kind of just a blowout past the halfway mark, where Colin was just making pretty bad mistakes in the first half, and then, he sort of used his team well.
Yeah.
Alright, well, let's move on to the next one then. The next match we have is the New York Yveltals versus the Philadelphia Union, the classic Philadelphia versus New York rivalry. While I'm happy that Philadelphia beat New York, shout outs to Philly, I'm not really happy with anything that happened in this match. Antonio, Chris was giving him the hustle, DMing him every day, let's play. Going into midterms week, Antonio very busy. I keep telling Antonio, no, hold off. We need to talk more about this. We barely got any prep in. We didn't even finish like building a team together. And then, Antonio just sort of caved, decided to play, and decided not really to try very hard. And even admitted me to me after the match that, head wasn't really in it. Wasn't really making any, like, really smart plays or anything like that. Part of the game, like, near the end, he was just trying to, like, get it over with. I don't think this was a real match, so I'm not gonna talk about it. It was just kind of something that happened. Antonio would have actually taken the forfeit if he knew it were a thing. So, and that would have saved his differential a bit more. He wouldn't be in the negative double digits right now. So Antonio going to bounce back next week. Chris, shout outs. I heard you had some really good sets that you built yourself. I know you also had some good prep work done by John as well. So mixture of, those two things. Sure, you deserve this W, I guess. Don't really have anything to say. I haven't watched the match, and I won't watch the match. So,
yeah, I'm not too keen on.
And save me with some actual analysis, because from somebody who's seen the match, because I haven't.
Right. Yeah, I got it. Don't worry. All that aside, I think this game was a testament to more Antonio's lack of experience with a rain team. I think if he would kind of just look up a video, or I think like A-Drive had a rain team for an entire Draft League season, so he could just watch some of those videos if he looked them up.
Cybertron had a pretty good rain team. Well,
there's some stuff. There's definitely resources online where Antonio can see how this is supposed to work out, and he's just not really preserving his resources the right way, I don't think. Like, he's got the rain up, and then he doesn't really protect it because he knows the Frostlass has hail, and he's in with Swampert, and he sets up sub on the hail instead of just killing the Frostlass. So, like, he's behind a sub, but he doesn't have any speed. It's just kind of little choices like that. And Swampert isn't the only thing he can go in when he's got the rain up. He also kind of throws away Ferrothorn. It's little stuff. It just shows, like, he's trying, but he doesn't quite grasp how the rain team is going to be played. And it's a shame, kind of, I think, that he's got a rain team now, without Ludicolo, which I don't know if that's being fixed or not.
It should be coming soon, I think.
Okay, so I think...
Basically, I haven't really talked to Antonio so much so far during the break. Hopefully things will get sorted out soon, but... Yeah,
I think Ludi is really, really important in a rain team, and the way he's got the rain team now, I think, like, it's just tough in draft, because everybody can prep against the rain team. Everybody can bring all kinds of ways to beat the rain team. Rain team is way better on something like ladder, where you can't specifically prep for rain as hard, and a rain team with no rain is not a rain team, and it becomes a lot harder for Antonio in this format where he's forced to run the rain team, and his opponents kind of get that little boost because they know what he's going to bring, and they know what they can bring to kind of stuff it out. And that's a little bit what happened here. Shout outs to Chris. Like, he had some good sets. Like the Frostlass set, I liked it a lot. I don't know if it would have worked so well if somebody who knew how to play rain was playing the rain. But it did what it was supposed to do. And shout outs to Chris for pulling that off. And Chris played a good game. I don't want to take away from him, but I think this was mostly Antonio, and I guess there's some other stuff, like Don said, that was going on, which I didn't know about, but I think this was mostly a testament to Antonio's lack of experience, which isn't too hard for him to patch up. Like, he could just find a video, watch some stuff in his free time, and I mean, he'd be a lot better off moving forward with this team if he would study up on how to best utilize his resources on the rain team.
I wouldn't worry too much about Antonio. Like I said, I'm just waiting for him to respond to me because he's been having a busy break. But he might show up and surprise you next week because we've got some pretty good stuff to bring against you.
I hope so.
And then after that, after the following week, we have some transactions that we're going to make. I think pretty much all of his transactions, actually. Pretty sure Ludi will be on the team. A couple other Pokemon coming in as well. That should make it a lot more of a... I think his team's already threatening, but I think it'll be able to make his team a bit more threatening when the rain's not up, a bit more versatile, and help him, maneuver around a bit more. So that's some stuff to look forward to that's hopefully in the works. Depends on when he find some time over break to actually
Yeah,
finish making stuff.
I'm excited.
All right. Next match then.
All right, last up we got the throwdown of the freshies, Ben versus Angelo. What do you got to say, Don?
All right, so I try to find some positives and negatives of both coaches. I don't really have anything too negative to say against Ben this week because I think he just really had control of the game from like turn 1. I think that his use of Sand Rush was excellent in terms of having quick, powerful options at the beginning of the game. And he also set it up twice during the game, which is something that I think that doesn't usually happen with Sand Rush because one of the two usually ends up going down to something, and usually you don't really get it working twice. So I think that was really good. I think that setting up rocks early and controlling the hazards and abusing Angelo's lack of hazard control was very good, and especially because Angelo was forced to switch a fair amount, helped him rack up the damage. So I think that Ben played the early game right, he played the middle game right, and he had good end game assessment in terms of like, oh yeah, Victini's going to be the Pokemon that wins the game, and then it swept. So I think that from start to finish, Ben was just fundamentally sound, and I don't really have any feedback, positive or any negative feedback overall. I'm not necessarily sold that Ben's like the #1 coach in the league or anything, but like so far he's always had pretty good fundamentals in each game, and I've been kind of impressed.
Yeah, well, even to this point, because he hasn't played his week 4 match, he's still the only 3-0 team. So
Yep.
We'll see how long that lasts.
Yep.
Specifically on this match, it looked a lot more refined from what we've seen. Not just these guys playing, but the other matches this week. You can tell that these guys. You can tell that they're both making reads on each other in their plays. But I think it teams really support the level that they're trying to play at.
Because you thought it sort of dipped out in the conversation.
Oh, all right. So how much did I repeat?
They were making reads from there.
Yeah. I don't. They're making the reads, but I don't think their teams are supporting what the reads that they're making. I don't think the teams are quite there at the level that they want to. At the level that they want to play at.
Yeah, I agree. Especially, I think that Ben's team's still a bit weaker, which has been part of why I've been so impressed that he's been able to win these 3 games in pretty consistent fashion.
It is impressive, that's for sure.
I think he has. I wouldn't say necessarily a bottom 5 team, but it's definitely not one of the better ones. So I get what you're saying there. I think I have some specific feedback for Angelo in terms of like watching his early game. I think again, sort of like week 2, he had patched up this issue and he sort of came out with like a lot more game sense in week 2. I think that sort of in week 3 reverted a little bit back to his week 1 kind of issues in terms of conception of the early game versus the late game. I don't really like Shark as a lead. I don't think that the Shark is really an early game Pokemon at all. Sharpedo, was one of the best like end game Pokemon in terms of setting up and sweeping. It's really reliable in mid game or end game. But setting it up turn 1, like it was just completely checked by the Mantine, and there wasn't really anything he could do. And Sharpedo is a Pokemon that doesn't want to switch out. It just wants to stay in for the rest of the game or until it gets like 2 KOs to knock down some walls. So I don't really think it did too much. It was kind of squandered by using it that early on. And then looking at one other specific instance of a decision that Angelo made, I think there was one play that Angelo made that was decent. It was like, the thinking was there, but it just wasn't quite there enough. So, at one part of the game, Angelo has Crocodile out. He sends it out basically against the Excadrill. Switches it in, it takes like 40-some%. So he knows it's going to live again, and it's going to be able to throw off a hit that could kill the Excadrill. Now he predicts that, he's going to switch out the Excadrill, because, Excadrill, very good Pokemon, it could come in later, it could do some mad work, and he probably just doesn't want to just throw that away. So, Angelo makes a very solid read, okay, he's going to switch. What's he going to switch into? And then he's like, okay, I think he pretty clearly identifies that he's going to switch into Mantine, so instead of clicking Earthquake, he clicks Outrage. Well, Ben didn't switch, so I think the Angelo's read was still very solid. I think it was very good to not click Earthquake there, because I think that would have been dangerous. But clicking Outrage there isn't really the play either, I don't think. Even though, yes, it will hit a Mantine and coming in very hard, you have to kind of look and see what he has in the back. But he has a Sylveon there. So even if he outrages the Mantine, not sure if it kills, maybe it does. but then he just goes hard Sylveon and revenge kills or sets something up with that. So I think that's just like using Outrage a bit too early in the game. I think that maybe better than that, if he sends the Krook out and really reads that the Excadrill's are going to switch into the Mantine, maybe do a double out into something that'll really take advantage of the Mantine, such as the Thundurus, I think could really abuse that. So I think that would have been like a really pro play if you just doubled out into Thundy there.
People forget that doubling is an option.
Yeah, so I think that would have been really good. So I think that, you know, Angelo's sort of like halfway there on that. He makes a pretty good read, but then just doesn't really execute it very well. So I think that like it's just stuff like that you have to be a bit more cognizant of. The more you play, the more you'll get good at that. I think overall the big issue with Angelo though is just to sort of work on the early game versus late game concept that I sort of brought up in week 1. But you have one more thing that you want to say about his team, right? Like you have a suggestion for his team?
Oh, yeah. Angelo, get some hazard removal options. Like, you can't just be running defog on Thundy T every single week, if that's even what you're doing. You got Entei and Thundy, who are both like super terrible and weak with rocks, and you don't have anything to get rid of them. Like, you got to pick up a spinner or something with defog on your team to take care of that. And that's another part of early game versus late game, because part of the early game is setting up your own hazards and getting rid of your opponents.
Do you want to take a quick look through the doc just to see if there's any like good potential hazard removal that you might be able to work into his team? This spectrum might go a little bit long, but I think that's okay.
Does Rabambi get defog? Because he gets webs.
I think it just doesn't run them because it gets webs, so why would it run defog?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you could defog and then webs, but so Rabambi's in tier 3. I don't even know what else.
Gets them.
Delmise is still out there.
Delmise is godly. I was trying to get that on Delmise's team before I worked out a trade for Ludi.
Delmise is a good option.
Yeah, so there's some Pokemon there that you can sort of work on to incorporate.
Koala too is a good spinner.
Oh yeah, somebody dropped that, right? It was Mark, right?
Yeah, somebody. I don't remember.
Yeah, so there's options now available for some better hazard control. I would definitely recommend that change. It's something that I didn't really notice in your team when we were doing the earlier evaluations. Shows how much I usually. Yeah.
Look in tier 4. You also got Type Null and Skuntank who can both defog.
Yeah, so I think that about wraps it up for this game. I think that it's about time to move on to the best part of the show, the first time when we're doing this for the season. So let me just wrap this up, and Alright, so the final part of Todds Maz, every week going forward, will be where the guests and I rank, have like sort of a power rankings of how each team's played so far in the season, where we put their like abilities at. It's not necessarily reflective of their records intensely, just how well they've been playing, especially how well they've been playing in recent weeks, stuff like that. Because sometimes, you know, just getting the W doesn't really prove like just getting the W isn't enough. Sometimes like differential comes into account. Sometimes decisions made that just don't end up panning out for whatever reason are also stuff to consider. So this week we'll be going through our ratings, and we have two kind of discrepancies in our lists for the top half. So for my top 8, I have both Ben and Pace on the list, whereas Dave has both Finn and Jeff. So do you want to justify your Finn and Jeff picks real quick? Why they're so
it's tough. Jeff has had a rough start of the season, but I'm sticking. I guess with Finn too. I'm sticking with my original beginning of the season team analysis, is because I think they have pretty good teams. It's a little bit sketchy with the results so far, I know, but I think that they're definitely in the top half of coaches, right. And their teams in the top half too. It's just it's tough with the results so far. Yeah. But yeah, it's sketchy, but yeah,
So
they're on there.
this is where I think I differ from you a bit, and this is just how subjective the rankings are going to be. Like, they're not going to be. If you want like the real rankings, check the standings. But like, this is sort of like a more subjective analysis. So, you know, I always look primarily at results and how I think those results played out. So, looking at it from my perspective, Finn and Jeff haven't really offered me too much this season. Looking at Jeff, both of them I think are top 5, top 6 in terms of actual coaching ability, and I think both of them are going to make playoffs this year. And I think that you just both have rough first halves of their first quarters of the season. So looking at Jeff, he won one match against an opponent who wasn't prepared at all. He lost another match at team preview. And then he played pretty well the other match against one of the best coaches in the league. So I think that's respectable, but I think that overall he hasn't really shown us enough battling for me to actually rank him top 8 on the season. I think that really the only legitimate battling we've seen him do was against Mark, where he sort of threw away the game early at the beginning and then played well for differential. So,
yeah, I don't disagree. I just think he's gonna be able to bring it back.
All right, then I'm just gonna take a moment to talk up Pace and Ben. I think that Pace has looked really good this season. I think that against Mark, even though he took the 3-0 loss, I think he played it really well. I think his prep was on point. Against Angelo, again, like, it wasn't really too much of a match. I think Angelo wasn't quite like into it yet. I think he was still trying to figure some stuff out. I think that Pace pretty much won because of Angelo's inexperience the first week. So I'm not really taking that into account. But then week 3, with Pace bouncing back from his loss and scooping a win against Finn, again, I think that's not really too much on Pace because I think that he came up with some really creative sets and some really good calcs and sort of won through creativity and not necessarily through battling. But I think that Pace has consistently shown up at the team builder every single week without fail. And I think that deserves, you know, a space in top 8, even if he's only my number 7 pick. And for Ben, I'm so invested in Ben's season so far. 3-0. The only team
John's a Ben fanboy.
Is he the only team to start 3-0, right? Or was there another?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure. I think there were 2 or 3 that were 3-0. But we'll see if he stays undefeated in week 4
without a loss so far, because we're still like halfway into week 4 as we're recording this. But yeah, he's the only team without a loss so far, basically. And I think that, you know, his play has been fundamentally solid. He hasn't really been pushed to the extent that I can say, like, oh, well, he played really well in this game where his opponent was playing really well. No, he's basically played some okay to good opponents and sort of won each time, come out in the end. And I think he's always had a really solid conception of like how the game flow is going to work. I still think his team's a little bit on the weaker side. I don't think he has a top 8 team in terms of like actually how his team like has like top end potential, but he's been doing really well with the team that he has so far. So I think he's definitely one of the top half so far. I think he's definitely top 8 in terms of skill, and in terms of raw results, he's probably even top 3, and I have him at 4, sort of like kind of marrying the two together. What other big points of difference do you have? You have Dick at 5, whereas I have him at 8. If you want to talk a little bit about why you have Dick so high.
Yeah, I have Dick higher. Mine was looking at it now compared to yours. It seems like it's more teams oriented. Like that was why I put John lower than Tyler and Mark, because I hate John's team. And that's why I had Finn and Jeff on the list, and you know, stuff like that. I guess it's more team oriented, whereas yours is a little more results oriented. But in this case with Dick, I had him placed up 5 because he beat me and Mark both pretty handily, it seemed. So I guess that's coming from his results. And I think Dick has definitely leveled up from like last season, and also from like the tournaments last season, from when I played him then, because I like put him in a Smogon tier tournament, which I wasn't expecting. So I think Dick has definitely come back from that, and I think he's up there in terms of skill.
All right, yeah. So on Dick, I think the first 3 weeks, he beat 2 of the best teams in the league pretty convincingly both times. I think in both games he had things he could have done better to secure bigger wins, or just to like kind of flex a bit. Didn't really go through with it. But then he also played a team that nobody's really considering for top 8 right now and got blown back. So I think that's also something to take into account.
Yeah.
You know, he's showed up. He's a team that I think has both some really good ideas in team builder, some really good like actual play occasionally. He also has some mistakes that he's making, and he has been punished for them once, literally just once. And you know, I think he's, you know, middle of the line, slightly up on the top end. I think there's a big difference between him and some of the teams at the bottom of the league. Pretty big gap there. I think there's a bigger gap between him and the number like 13 player than there is between him and the number 3 player for sure. So you know, I'm excited to see where he goes. And spoiler alert, based off of his match last week, or his match of this week, he's already played his week 4 match as we're recording this. He's definitely going to be jumping a few spots on my list next week. I just didn't take that for this week.
And this, of course, this is going to be tough because it's only week 3 and we only have 3 matches to look at for all these
That's why
guys.
I didn't do this the first 2 weeks because there really wasn't enough to go on. But I figured starting 3 weeks in would be enough to kind of get a sense, like once we had those next matches. I think. Do you want to overview Tyler, John, Mark?
I think Mark is definitely the number 1 guy right now, especially with all the practice that he's getting in those other leagues. Yeah. He's probably the best team builder, besides me, of course, because I'm the best team builder.
Yeah, Pokegame said it, right? Even Pokegame said he's the best builder.
Yeah, like Mark is consistently bringing like just the right amount of heat in the right places. He's playing his Pokemon the way they're meant to be played. He's reading his opponents and everything they're gonna do before they do it. And I'm a Mark fanboy. You can be a Ben fanboy, but I'm a Mark fanboy. And he's good. He's good at Pokemon to support all that. So like he's got both halves of Draft League all wrapped up. I think Tyler and John are pretty good at playing Pokemon. I think John's team sucks. I think Tyler's team is a little bit better. So that's why I have them in that order there. Yeah.
The only problem I have with Mark is I think that, again, I'm looking at things more from a results perspective. I think Mark's been unquestionably the best team in weeks 2 and 3. I think he's definitely moving up. But I think his week 1 performance was pretty abysmal in both a prep and playing perspective. He didn't really prepare the T-Tar. He didn't really play around his T-Tar. It was kind of a massacre. So, I think that Mark, week 4, week 5, I'm going to have him, you know, still top 3. I think he's top 3 in terms of skill. Probably he'll even pass Tyler and John for me. But I think that, you know, he hasn't really shown it yet. I think he's kind of gotten an ouch, whereas, you know, when John played you, when you scooped that one against John, you know, John had like a bit of a shaky moment here and there, but I think for the most part he lost because you played pretty well. And I think that Tyler has only lost because his opponents have played well. Like, he cleaned up week 1 and week 2 really cleanly in matches he should have won. He's the only one of the 3 of them has, you know, hasn't lost a match that, you know, he should win. So that's why I have to have Tyler at my number 1, just because he's consistently shown up. When he does lose, it's the teams he should, you know, have some trouble with.
Yeah.
And then outside of that, we both have you and Glumac. You have yourself a little bit higher than I do. I call arrogance, but you know we'll get to that. we'll see how that
I like my team.
I don't really your team very much because we've already done that a bit. You have Glumac quite a bit lower than me. I think I just have a lot of faith in Glumac's skills. He has a very similar play style to how I play, and he does it better than me. So
you know, Glumac's good. I feel like I should apologize for putting him in 8th. I guess maybe let me just check. I guess I'm just not impressed with his win so far. Like he beat Chris, which is a given, of course, because everybody beats Chris Thompson. And then he lost to Ben, who I don't even have ranked. And then he beat Jacob, who, of course, Jacob's trash.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between your opinion of Glumac and mine. You say he lost to Ben, who you don't have ranked. I say he lost to Ben, who I have ranked above him. So.
Yeah, I can see it, and like Glumac's really good, but I just like it was tough those last 4 spots on this. Yeah. You know, I put Dick up because of the results. I put Finn and Jeff there because of the teams, and then Glumac just kind of snuck in there because he's a good battler.
I just really hope Glumac. The thing is, I don't want him to make any changes to his team because I think his team kind of fits how he plays, and I think that it's a really fun team to watch. Especially like watching him stream and like his decision making for it. I just don't think the team's very good. I think it's still like bottom 1, bottom 2 in terms of league. I'm still holding to that. I really want to see him go for a more balanced approach to building, but it's just so much fun watching him with his current team. So
yeah, he got my Mudsdale too.
Yeah.
He got my horsey.
Yeah, I guess he is making some moves that'll hopefully pay off. So
yeah, well, I mean, we'll see. This can all change very easily, very quickly.
Yeah. So yeah, like next week it'll probably look completely differently. I expect by the end of the season, like when I'm doing the week 8 and 9 videos, they'll probably be the same type of like ranking from both players or from both like analysts back to back. I'm not really expecting too many changes near the end of the season, but for the beginning of the season, this could fluctuate pretty a lot wildly. With the exception of I don't think Tyler, John, or Mark will drop out of top 5 this entire season. I don't think. I think they're the 3 best players by a decent margin. So
I'm hoping to move up in your rankings
because you what? Didn't catch
I
that?
respect your rankings a lot more than I respect my own.
Oh, yeah. So basically, for you, I'll go into it a little bit. You know, looked really solid against John. Kind of shit the bed against Dick.
Yeah. My week 2 team wasn't there.
And to be fair, Colin's the only one who's beaten Dick this season. So
yes. I would feel a lot worse if Dick hadn't beaten Mark.
I think that you didn't play the best against Dick. I think that there were definitely opportunities you could have cleaned up and things that he could have gone further with. So I don't think that was really the best look for you. And I think the week 3 look was awesome because I think that you kind of messed up.
It was.
Even though you
those were even rolls on
Volcarona
Zack's team. Like the important kills, like those were rolls. Like,
yeah, but you played it. I mean, it was really good. It looked like you were destroying him, especially with the way you were swagging on him at certain points. But other than that, I think that you did play it close to the chest with that Volcarona. I agree with your analysis there. If you had just gotten like a little bit more chip done against you, like you could have been reverse swept pretty easily. So like I think you've been playing like a solid playoff team, but not like a favorite to win playoffs or a favorite to get to like Final Four team.
Let's hope I get playoffs.
You're going to. Dude, there's no way you can win playoffs with 4 teams.
Well,
we'll see. Anyway, it was fun having you on as an analyst. Hopefully you make playoffs and don't bubble out,
had a great time.
retire and become an analyst next season. That would be the darkest time of But yeah. So pleasure having you.
Love to come back.
Any last words or?
No, I mean, I'd love to do it again if you run out of guests.
No, for sure. We're definitely going to run out because I'm only going to ask like 5 or 6 different people. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully, like if not as a solo guest, we'll definitely have you back as like a group type of special. Yeah. Maybe like a mid-season.
The lifelong dream of mine. Hi, Mom.
Anyway, catch you later, Dave.
See ya.